6,000 rock carvings.
A lot of it is
Yes.
now destroyed. If we hadn't done it,
Yes.
it would be lost.
Yes.
And then we found out, okay, there's also an emergency involved. So fungal growing all over the rock art.
And if you want to remove these fungus, so that the patina of the rock carving also remove.
Yeah, the construction work, vandalism, destruction.
So they destroy it for making walls of the house.
Oh, we can't send a drone up to photograph. Can't take a lot of lighted students into the mountains. And there's still so much work to do.
The Karakorum Mountains, an inhospitable terrain with a harsh environment. Despite this, ancient humans still found their way through these mountains. We could even say that the Karakorum was an important artery for the exchange of people and goods, but also culture and religion along the Silk Road. These mountains might look empty at first sight, but if we take a closer look, we can actually see that hundreds of thousands of carvings left by ancient humans are scattered within them.
This project started 2019, was this, I think?
Yeah.
I was studying Gandharan Buddhist art, and I got in touch with some professors in Germany who had done research in the mountains. And one of my master students, Alex Moens, was interested in this, and I sent him to Pakistan at 2 weeks' notice, where he joined a workshop where he met Hani.
I ended up meeting Hani in Gilgit, and from there the collaboration with our team resulted in some amazing work done by Hani and his team, as well as Dr. Van Eyre and her team in Leiden.
We started talking to Hani, we started talking, and we looked for funding opportunities.
So then I applied for the Prince Class Fund, and we get this project. In 2021, we started our field work in Gilgit-Baltistan area. Before this project, I voluntarily documented many of the rock carving since 2014.
In terms of variety of archaeological material that we find, the main part of the data set is rock carvings. These carvings, they span all the way from the Bronze Age up until modern times, including modern graffiti, which you can find along the Karakorum highway these days. The overwhelming majority of carvings are animals. These are animals that are found within the mountains, so quite a lot of goats. But there are also a lot of significant, there's a significant amount of Buddhist art as well as inscriptions. So far, Hani and his team have done an excellent job of gathering carvings that were previously undocumented as well as unpublished, and also found sites with rock art that were previously unknown.
We did 2-month documentation project in which we document around about 5 sites. 3 in Alambridge and 2 in Chilas area. In our first campaign, we documented 208 boulders in which more than 2,000.
Yeah, around
3,000 rock carvings there. In our second campaign, we documented around about 50 to 60 boulders, and in our last campaign in 2023, we documented 230 in one site, and then 30 boulders, which is incomplete now, and we will complete it now in future campaigns. So in total, we have more than 6,000 rock carvings.
Hani and the team, they go into the mountains, you go into the field. The other archaeologists you work with, they are all trained archaeologists. So they all have master's degrees or MPhil degrees in archaeology. So that's the core team. They're all from Pakistan. And then some of the local people help out. They also train them. And then we exchange the data. We make the catalogs, and it's really a Leiden-Pakistan collaboration. While the fieldwork is, of course, the most important part for the documentation of the actual rock art, that is not where the academic process stops. In fact, even longer time is spent once we have the documentation on digitizing it and forming it into a catalog. A list of all the boulders with their coordinates, clear maps with dots on the map where every boulder is, a distribution of the type of carvings on the boulders, So what happens, we have all the data, the forms, the digitizations, the photos, and here in Leiden with also a team of our students who are doing internships to help us out. The next step with rock art, digitization, is very important. So now through digital tools, what we can do is we use very clear tracings in a clear line to sort of light up the carvings on the original rocks. So gathering them in a catalog that is widely accessible and will be published in open access makes the data without bias, without interpretation, available for researchers. So it is also a good opportunity for students here in Leiden to learn that archaeology is not always digging. And so a lot of the important handling of the material, a lot of the analysis and documentation has to be done on a computer and can be done very far away from where they originally are in a lab in Leiden.
The data from this project is useful for a number of different topics. The study of the spread of Buddhism can be supported by the evidence that we find in these mountains. The imagery of the Buddha as well as Buddhist stupas gives us more evidence for the way in which Buddhist imagery was spread throughout the Silk Roads and how it changed as it did. What we see with these carvings is that there was a lot of movement of people through this region, and that Buddhism itself was traveling along these trade routes along with the merchants themselves, but not really in a single uniform manner. We see different styles of Buddhism in the dataset. Through stylistic analysis in my bachelor thesis, I was able to see that certain images of the Buddha contained cultural traces from cultures that would have existed within that region and in neighboring regions, so in China, in India and Afghanistan, as well as Central Asia. So all of these are combining and mixing with each other to create the unique imagery that we actually find in the Karakorum. These rock carvings also provide more information on the ancient trade routes of the Silk Roads. By identifying clusters of these carvings, we can determine where there would have been stopping points and possibly small towns or camps that merchants would have stopped at. It's part of the process also because Buddhism was a religion that was practiced a lot by merchants throughout its history, so naturally would have spread alongside the expanding trade networks that existed within that time. Another interesting topic that you wouldn't really think could be studied with these carvings is actually studying the biology of the region itself. And this comes through studying the animal carvings.
It's very interesting what we saw together with one of our Leiden master student graduates, Mike Kneppers, is that a lot of animals that are now almost extinct or threatened in the Himalayas of Pakistan are still featured really very numerously in these rock art from at least 2000 years ago or even longer. So this is a work in progress, but we are also using our catalogs for biodiversity research. So archaeology joining the study of how the decline in biodiversity can actually be mapped through studying the rock art. The reason why we got the Prince Claus grant, which is now the SARE Cultural Emergency Response, who are now funding us, is because a lot of the rock art is also on threat by all kinds of threats, construction work, vandalism, destruction of especially the Buddhist rock art. So the grant that you got was especially for the preservation or at least the emergency documentation. So it's not only an archaeological project, and that's how we started. We just wanted the rock art, and then we found out, okay, there's also an emergency. Some sites are quite safe, but like Allen Bridge, that we now fully documented, a lot of it is now destroyed.
There was a concept on their mind that these are not belong to our religion. So they day by day they are destroying it, and unfortunately they destroy those boulders, those rocks which having more rock carving. So they destroy it for making walls of the homes. So these rock carvings are destroyed by the rolled material and also by blasting these rock carvings. This big boulder is blasted by the locals and it is made for road construction. So our project is a very rescue project. So we preserve these rock carvings and before it is too late.
It's not that people were against the rock art, it was just not much knowledge about it, and then once you also explain like the Buddhist rock art is 2,000-year-old, it's from it's pre-Islam. Everyone was really interested.
We have two section of workshop. The first one, we show them how we are documenting these rock carving and how the important is these rock carving. Then we bring them to the field and show them that who make these rock carvings and what is the importance of these rock carvings and how you will preserve these rock carvings in your own way. This picture shows that how we train the locals during the workshop. And so each archaeologist train these local people and that how we document these rock carving and how we preserve these rock carvings. We have booklets. So we distribute these booklets in the high schools, colleges, universities, and there we deliver small lecture for awareness that this is our heritage and we have to protect them, we have to do something for this. So after our project, now they are safeguarding these heritage by their own way. We are here, but they are stopping people from destroying this. If someone is going to destroy it, they are who are trained, they are stopping these destruction and all these things.
Yeah, so it's an opportunity for the locals as well to sort of take agency and ownership and tourist opportunities for them.
Whenever foreigner tourists visit, they can let's go, I will show you our heritage, this is our heritage. So they are very happy to know all about this.
So what we try to do with the workshops, and also why we want to publish all our work in open access so that everyone can access it for study, it's a knowledge exchange. So we don't want to come in here, document things and then publish it behind a big paywall that only academics can access it. But yeah, I remember the response also the second time you did a workshop at the university in Gilgit. A lot of young students, young men and women, and they were really eager to learn it. So we weren't planning on this from the start. We were really planning to photograph rocks, and then all this happened, and I think that's a great opportunity. I think it's important that it's a Pakistani team, that you are leading it. And yes, we're collaborating, we're doing the interpretation together, we're making the catalogs together. But in the past, it was mostly from the colonial times. It was the British and then the Germans who would come in and document it. So I think that's a good thing. And for the outreach, I think for the workshops, that would not work if I show up, because you have studied these rock art as much or more even than I have. So also this our faculty, as you all know, is big on heritage, and we don't just want the archaeology, we want to also engage with people. And I think in this project that sort of happened automatically, but it's also its strength. I'll say the purely scientific side, these mountains are covered in inscriptions, images ranging thousands of years of human presence, of migrations in prehistory, trade routes in historic times, the transmission of Buddhism from India to the Far East. We have inscriptions in Brahmi and Koroshti that have never been translated. We don't know what it said there. So it is an enormous wealth of knowledge of the human past, not only in the ancient subcontinent, but the connections between what now is Pakistan and further east. So it is purely academically, it is a treasure trove of knowledge. A lot of the historical texts that we have now are based on much fewer data. And what we find here might change our understanding and see that even in prehistory people were really connected. It's also rare for archaeology to find sites that have never been studied.
And this is also the only visible remains of the human past that we can construct a history of the Silk Route, and that area you don't do excavation or something like that. Rock art is the main source, so you can create these history from.
Why is it important? I would say knowledge of the past, that we didn't have that changes our knowledge, but also for the people in Pakistan, it is your heritage.
Yeah, heritage.
And even if sometimes people don't know about it, the moment they do, they really want to cherish it.
So I think one of the most interesting parts of this project is the fact that it's very different from how usual archaeological projects go. We're using non-invasive methods. We're using digital means to make a catalog. That's why it's super important that all of our data is going to be published in open source form so everybody can access it and work with it.
So it's not excavation like we're used to, it's very digital, but it's also kind of sustainable in the way we do it because the material is getting destroyed and we are recording it for future generations of archaeologists to take a look at it and do research for it as well.